Kevin McCarthy has been removed as Speaker of the House. McCarthy is the first Speaker of the House to be vacated from his seat in U.S. history. Shout out to Matt Gaetz. He is doing the Lord's work. I will give you my simple opinion without bearing the lead. In 2022, Republicans won a narrow majority, a slim majority. And Donald Trump was heavily criticized by establishment Republicans and conservatives for tanking them, saying it's his fault that they didn't have the big red wave because Americans didn't like him. I disagree. I think that's not true. But guess what? That argument makes no sense. As soon as McCarthy gets in, what happens? He starts cutting backroom deals with Biden and with Democrats. What's the purpose of Republicans winning a slim majority if the Speaker of the House is going to cut deals with Democrats instead of his own party? In fact, it's people like Matt Gaetz that help give the Republican Party its majority. So those arguments that Donald Trump is the reason there's no majority, meaningless if you're going to agree that McCarthy should be working deals with Democrats, because then you may as well just have a Democrat majority. And so this is my argument against individuals like Thomas Massie. I like Thomas Massie. He's a good dude. Let me play this clip for you of what Massie said in defense of Kevin McCarthy.
This is a referendum on this institution. We have tried regular order. Speaker McCarthy has tried regular order. If regular order fails today, if you vacate the speaker, nobody is going to try it again.
Time has expired.
This institution will fail.
I ain't crying about it. Certainly not. And my understanding is I've seen reports Lauren Boebert supported McCarthy, as did Marjorie Taylor Greene. I respect these individuals. I appreciate the work they do in Congress, but I'm with Matt Gaetz on this one.
You got to keep in mind, you're not necessarily supporting the man, you're supporting the office and the function of the office. And maybe what Thomas is saying is that if Kevin McCarthy's voted out, that we won't have a speaker now, and we just won't have one. And like Kevin said, I'm not doing it. I'm done. Other people, who can you even think of that could do it or would do it?
Trump.
This guy, Thomas Massie.
A lot of people like that idea.
Troy Nails tweeted that he nominates Donald Trump to be Speaker. Seconded. I'm just some guy on the internet, though. I hope Matt Gaetz seconds it.
It doesn't have to be a Congress member. It could be anyone.
Anyone can do
I
it.
think let's throw Donald Duck there. Donald Duck. Let's throw some mystical characters.
Let's Donald Duck.
Let's appoint a dog as the first Speaker of the House, and I think the dog probably would do a way better job than all the other Speaker of the Houses before them.
When Congress, when the leadership in Congress meets with lobbyists and corporate power in secret to negotiate deals on what's going to be in the federal spending bill, and then brings out a 5,000-page omnibus and tells every member of Congress, just sign it. Otherwise, you're blocking the troops. Otherwise, veterans aren't getting their benefits. That's blackmail. That is extortion. You are staring down these good people in Congress, people like Matt Gaetz, who are saying, when he came on the show last week, he said, we want to make sure that we get a bill to make sure, disabled veterans are getting, the VA benefits are coming out. We don't want them to miss these payments, right? So this is what they do. They come to a member of Congress and threaten the vulnerable and the people who have served this country and others and the elderly to force you into funding Lockheed Martin and other big military industrial complex corporations. How is that an institution we care about? Matt Gaetz had a simple proposal. Propose what you want to fund, and we'll vote on it. That makes a lot of sense. What's the problem? The problem is they know that if they present a bill to fund, say, Lockheed Martin, to fund war, it's going to be debated, and it's going to get stonewalled. There's going to be delays. There's going to be fights, because that's the thing American people actually want to fight about. Mm-hmm. But they know if they go to you and say, your kids won't get food, the poor people won't get benefits, veterans won't get paid, then what happens? A guy in a wheelchair shows up to your office and says, why is my pay getting cut off? You're obstructing the government. And you try to tell them, we don't want that for you. We're trying to get that funding. And then Kevin McCarthy actually says, when they're moving to remove him, when Matt Gaetz files, hey, if you're trying to remove a guy who kept the government open and got the troops paid, we're in a bad place. It is blackmail for the lobbyists and the multinational corporations. Matt Gaetz did a good thing here.
I feel like the American people probably learned a lot today, too, because oftentimes these things, these omnibus bills, they just get passed, like you said, Tim, and people don't really understand. All they know is that the national debt is going up, that we're sending money overseas, that things are tougher here for the American people. So maybe they learned a little bit today, and maybe people can actually start to talk about these things. You're right. It shouldn't just be everyone is forced into this. We should have a robust debate about it. We should be talking about what is actually being spent here and on what. And, I do. I think overall this is a positive thing. I feel bad a little bit for Kevin McCarthy, though. He has had a rough go. Man, it was tough for him to get elected in there. I'm sure today wasn't a great day for him. I generally think he's a nice guy, but this was probably a necessity.
We were talking about leadership the other day and how there's a lot of stories throughout history of people who don't want to be the executive, like George Washington. No, I don't want to do it. I'm like, well, someone's got to do it. And he's like, I don't want to. Okay, fine, I guess I'll do it. And Cincinnatus, I think his name was. I think that was it Rome? They had an emergency, said we need someone to take executive authority. Said, I don't want to do it. And they were like, you have to. He took power. He resolved the emergency and then went right back to farming. And we respect that tremendously. Kevin McCarthy should have recognized this immediately when there was the fight over the speakership, that either he was going to have to negotiate and abide by the terms of his negotiations, or he should not do it at all. And he agreed to terms with, 21 members of Congress who were saying, we want to negotiate these specific terms. Otherwise, we won't support you. One of those terms, my understanding, was not to cut backroom deals with Democrats. If Kevin McCarthy wants to go back on his word and his word is meaningless, then I don't think he's a good guy. And he should have said immediately, guys, it will be impossible for me to do this deal with you. I'm not going to be speaker. And this never would have happened.
As you're talking about all these people who are like, I don't want to be in this position. I'm not the right one. I actually feel like if you go back and look at my father-in-law, for years ago, we're talking like the 80s, the Oprah interviews, the 90s. He said for so long, I don't want to do it. But if there ever came a time where things got so bad, I felt like I had no other choice, I would run for president. And amazing to see that he did it, what he did while he was president, the way they fought against him, what is happening now, all of it. But as you were saying that's the only person that came to my mind, because to see what he's given up and the hell he's gone through, man.
What is his net worth dropped?
I don't know how much, but significant.
Especially with the judge attacking Mar-a-Lago, which is really weird for a New York judge to be like, it's worthless. And it's like, okay, well, I think Trump is one of the rare politicians whose net worth has declined by joining public office, where typically you see Dianne Feinstein being worth, $150 million after being in Congress, and the Pelosi's are worth $200 million. So, I'll give you my personal view is, yeah, there's a big difference between George Washington and Donald Trump.
A little bit.
Right.
Just a scotch.
But we've seen all the interviews of Trump being asked since the 80s. Yeah. And we even had that, who was it? It was Trump was on a talk show with, I can't remember who it was. It was one of those morning shows, and who was it? They were like, you got to run, Donald. It wasn't the Oprah interview. There was another one, and he was like, well, I don't know about that.
Probably Morning Joe.
It was
they
Roseanne.
Used to be, was it Roseanne?
Yeah.
Yes.
Roseanne was encouraging him.
Oh, well, she's still a fan.
He's been encouraged a lot, and he would always say no. But back to the main story. I think we have this tweet pulled up. I think it's actually the second. Did I pull this up? Congressman Troy Nails. He's a good dude. We've had him on the show several times. Says Kevin McCarthy will not be running again as Speaker. I nominate Donald J. Trump for Speaker of the House. Please. Matt Gaetz did this the first time around. Second it. And, I don't see the excuse for any member of Congress to not go for bold changes in D.C.
The concern is if someone nominates Oprah and then they win. Because it's a popularity contest. Well, and all the Democrats are like, we need somebody famous to get everyone to say yes to it.
I get that, but Republicans aren't going to play that game.
Yeah.
And if Republicans have the majority and can win if they just agree, how about the former Republican president?
Well, does it only take 8 Republicans to side with the Democrats to push someone in? Or 9 or something? I think it's 5 or 6, I think even.
I think it's not 5 or 6. I think it might be 11. What is it?
I don't know.
I guess my follow-up question is...
It might be less than that. It might be 6.
If Trump were to take it, would he still be able to run for president as the Speaker of the House? Or is that a conflict of interest?
That I don't know. It's a good question.
I don't see why not. Because he's not a member of Congress. He would just be Speaker. That'd be really interesting.
And even if he were a member of Congress, he could still run for president.
I know it's just not reality. But people were talking about a few years ago, like Steve Bannon was saying, nominate Trump for Speaker, vote him in as Speaker, and then when you impeach Biden and convict Biden and Kamala, Trump becomes president.
What are the qualifications for the Speaker? Like, what are the main things you need from that person?
What do you mean?
Like charisma? Do you need intelligence? Do you need
those are probably favorable, yeah.
Connections in business, in the industry? Or is that actually a bad thing? So how do you want these people? Do you want them to be
I would say the qualifications, the requirements, not necessarily qualifications, because that implies like a procedural thing, but the characteristics we're looking for in any leader is going to be integrity, honesty, transparency to the best of their abilities. I understand we have security issues.
Something completely lacking in Congress that no one, very few people have in there.
Matt Gaetz.
But I think someone that doesn't roll over on their back and let the Democrats have their way with them. I think that's the first thing. I think anyone that's not a rhino, anyone that's not a neoconservative, anyone who doesn't want to perpetuate the larger proxy war in Ukraine right now, I think this is a larger kind of referendum against Congress failing the American people. Throughout many years now, they never represented the will of what people actually wanted. There was never a public referendum on if we should start a proxy war in Ukraine. There was never a referendum on the debt ceiling. Kevin McCarthy, another thing he did, he made it that the Biden administration could print and borrow as much money as they want until 2025. Right now, just a few days ago, the debt went up $275 billion in just one day. It is set to increase to almost $1 trillion in just 1 month. It just hit $33 trillion. America is being destroyed by a lot of the corporate influences that have hijacked Congress. And this is a referendum saying, we had enough. Stop it.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.